Good morning, everyone,
Good morning.
and good morning to those online. Thank you for joining us today. So let us take a breath together. Feel yourself settle in and let that breath expand. And when I do this for myself, I feel that opening at the top all the way through me. And that opening is Spirit itself. And all the love, all the power, all the joy is in that feeling, vibrating in me and through me and around me, everywhere, present all the time. And this is true for all of creation. All of creation, all those here, everything, everywhere is this one source. It is never diminished. It is endless supply, whether it be love or power or joy, wisdom, abundance, it all is 100% here right now, and then here, and then here, and then here. Always, without a doubt. And every breath I take expands that. And that is true for all. Every breath loosens those things that are not spirit, things that are thoughts in mind that are diminishing ourselves. It loosens so that those things can drop away. Those things can just release. On the exhale, it can just let go. So that the expansion, the opening, and the infinite possibilities are present at all times. And I am grateful to know this. I am grateful to feel this within myself and to know that it is within everyone in this room and beyond. Because that is the nature of that one. And in great gratitude, I release it into the law that always says yes, the law that is accessible right here to all. And with that, I say, and so it is.
So this year we're completing a whole year of the theme of a grand rising. And that's what we've been exploring all this whole year long. That's why we're doing that song that Brent wrote called Stick the Landing, is we're kind of in that final stage. Today's the last day of that. And so we gather in all we have learned throughout this whole year, and then we look forward to what's next. And what's next for us in terms of themes is growing deeper, rising higher. So we're going to continue that rising theme, but we're also going to add roots to it, some rootedness to it. Yes? And so we're going to do that. And as we step forward, we're going to be exploring that in next year's theme also by looking at what are our foundations, what are our roots. So we start by exploring one of my favorite invitations from Ernest Holmes, and that we be open at the top. That is, that we keep growing, that we keep expanding, that there is always more, as Angelina said in that opening prayer. There's always more. There's more to learn. There's more to be. There's more to express, because we're playing in a field of infinite possibility, yes? Think of that, infinite possibility. Infinite good. So the only question is, how much good can we handle? And then it's one thing to know about this idea. It's another to actually expand into that greater space. You know, sometimes we're like living in a huge multi-room mansion, and we're only occupying 2 or 3 little rooms in it. And we know there are other rooms available, but we stay safe in our little comfortable space, and we don't go explore those other rooms. We don't want to be challenged by going into something new that we've never been to before. So the invitation is to go explore beyond where we've gone before. And there are 4 sayings of Ernest that I want to play with today. and to take forward with us. And the first of those is principle is not bound by precedent, which just is a fancy way of saying just because it has been this way doesn't mean it has to continue being this way, right? So principle, the infinite, never recreates itself. It doesn't duplicate itself. In case you haven't noticed, you don't have a duplicate on the planet. Not yet. And even if you have a clone on the planet, it still won't be exactly you. So, spirit never duplicates itself. Principle is not bound by precedent. It doesn't have to continue being this way just because it has been this way. Then the second statement is evolution is always forward. And this tells us two things. First, not only do things not have to stay the same, they won't. They can't. Because life is ever evolving, expanding, growing, doing something new and fresh that it has never done before. And then the second thing this says is that life is always moving forward, whether we perceive it or not, whether it seems so from our perspective or not. How many of us, my hand's going to be up here, have had the idea that no, the way life is going isn't good? Okay? And then 5 or 10 years down the road, we look back and say, oh, yeah, now I see it. Okay? So evolution is always moving forward, whether it appears to from our perspective or not. Life is always seeking a greater expression of its own nature, which may or may not look like the way we would expect it, which may even not look like the way we would like it. But we trust that life is always for greater good. We trust that life is for us. The third saying is the one from our talk title, that we are to be open at the top. So life is ever expanding. Don't put a lid on it. Don't put a lid on it. And finally, that we should be a people who are for something and against nothing. There are so many things these days, especially, to be against, yes? But against, without being for, just creates anger, fighting, and meaningless destruction. So as Mother Teresa responded when invited to an anti-war rally, she said, I'm not going to go to that, but if you have a peace rally, I'll be there for that. What am I for? See, it's a starting point to notice what I'm against. It's a starting point. But it takes a deeper process to ask, but then what am I for? This is what I don't want, but what do I want instead? That's the creative process. From there, we can create what we truly want, which creates an expanded experience of life. So we can get lost in playing small and feeling little, meaningless, and powerless. Anybody besides me ever have that experience? Yes? And so there's a lovely little Ojibwe saying I came across this week that says, sometimes I go about with pity for myself, and all the while, great winds are carrying me across the sky. Great winds being capital G, capital W. Sometimes I go about with pity for myself, and all the while great winds are carrying me across the sky. We get locked up in our little world, our little hurts, our little triumphs, and all the while something greater is moving through us and carrying us. Life is carrying us along in its greater expansion, but we sometimes get wrapped up in our little world, forgetting that we are spiritual beings playing. That word is playing, not suffering, playing in a human world. Take a breath. Let your body stretch and expand a little bit with that. It is important for us to remember that we, as we practice religious science, are open at the top and at the same time grounded in spiritual principles. And we'll be diving into the foundation of those principles next month. But as we continue our journey of awakening today and right now, and by the way, we are all continuing our journey of awakening. And when I say all, I mean every single being on the planet are continuing, consciously or unconsciously. My friend Michael Beckwith says that we're all asleep. Some of us are deep sleepers, banging into things and completely unaware. And some of us are light sleepers, and we're starting to become aware that we're asleep. We're starting to become aware that we're not perfect, that we don't know everything. Yes? But we're still all waking up. So we're all continuing on this journey of awakening. And whether we know it or not, whether we feel like it or not, we learn and apply these principles, which are not unique to and are owned by religious science, by the way. These principles that we teach, they're not ours. Ernest said, I never invented anything. I just gathered together the wisdom of the whole human race. The ancient wisdom, the current wisdom, the best that we can do. Now go out and find more. That's the expansion and the open at the top. But it's one thing to know a principle. It's one thing to know about a principle. It's another thing to apply the principle, yes? And so we apply, if we're working this teaching, we apply these principles using practices, using methods, and we begin to see our lives shift and change and grow. As we consciously put spirit more fully at our center, our circumference, which is the circumstances of our lives, shifts and changes and expands. And it reflects and expresses that nature, that divine nature, more fully. And again, that process was we put spirit at the center consciously first. This is what Jesus meant when he said, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all else will be added unto you. We have to put that nature to our center first. So we begin to understand more clearly as we play with this, as we do the processes, as we do the practices, and we see the results, we begin to understand more clearly how this creative process works. And we move from viewing life as happening to me, oh my God, life is just happening to me, there's nothing I can do, to realizing that I can influence life. And then so it appears that life is happening by me. I'm making it happen. To recognizing then that the flow of life is happening through me. Through me. That I'm co-creating, that I'm in partnership with this thing, these great winds that are already happening. And that I can trust life. That I can trust life. This learning to trust life is actually the topic of the class I'm doing next month on What's in the Way is the Way. And I strongly encourage you to be in it. It's a wonderful book and it's a wonderful class. So I invite you to be in that. So as we create lives that are more in alignment with Spirit as life, we have not only the opportunity but the responsibility to expand that life beyond our own individuality. To not just, hey, my life is good. I don't give a, what about you people. We have a responsibility to expand beyond that. One of the dangers along the journey is complacency. Getting to a mindset of my life is good enough, I don't want to go any further. The problem with that is life is evolving, always moving forward. So even if I sit here and say, this is good, I'm just going to sit here, guess what? It's going to change. It's going to change. And then since all forms of life are spirit in form, and all form is contained within a unity, we're all one. To truly expand our experience and expression of spirit, we must support the experience and expression of spirit in all forms of life. Otherwise, we're cutting off part of our own life, part of our own life experience. So we become more grounded. As we become more grounded in spiritual principles and practices, we are called to share with others. We are called to reach out beyond our comfort zones and help those who are not quite as adept at life as ourselves. And yet our outreach must always be grounded in principle, in what we teach and who we are. Grounded in supporting the expansion of spiritual awareness and expression in other people, just as well as ourselves. Just giving a handout doesn't help in the long run. We must give a hand up in consciousness to support our fellow beings in creating lives that they love also. One of my favorite mottos I wanted it for our vision statement is creating lives we love in a world we love. And for us to be that place that starts to take that into action. So as our community moves into 2025, we're going to be exploring what does this mean for us? Not just individually, but collectively as a community. We'll be working with a consultant to re-examine our mission, purpose, and vision and what it is that we are, to explore who and where we are now, today. And then to develop strategic plans to support our fuller expression of the uniqueness of Spirit as this community, as this unique Center for Spiritual Living of Olympia community. How can we be more of ourselves and take that out to the streets, if you will? Take that out into the community more. Watch for opportunities to participate in both creating and applying this throughout the coming year. And this is going to be a year-long process. This is not we're going to meet once and figure it all out and there we go. No, we're going to be doing this, kind of unfolding this, allowing it to emerge, to grow, to be birthed. And birth takes a gestation period, yes? And so we're going to have a gestation period, and then we're going to give a birth. And then you got to, once you give the birth, that's it, right? The kid's on its own? No, we got to nurture the baby. And so we're going to be doing that throughout this year and the coming years. So watch for opportunities to play with that. Often what keeps us from expanding are two things. First is fear. The fear of losing what we have. Losing what we have. You know, I remember when I was up at CSL Seattle, we were building, at the time they were building a whole new building on their campus because they had outgrown the existing sanctuary. They had 1,400 people showing up on a Sunday. They were running 4 services just to accommodate everybody, and they were still, overflowing from what they could do. And so they were building a new building, and people were kind of like, well, I'm not sure we want to expand that much, And at the same time, I had a friend of mine, a minister from the Mile High Church in Denver, which is our largest community, who was visiting, and they were about 6 months ahead of us of building their new building. Jeremy probably remembers that. And they were building their new building, and we were talking, and his name is Raz Smith, and he said, he says, our community also is concerned about losing the intimacy of a 4,000 person community. We have people afraid of losing the intimacy of a 1,500 person community, right? We might have new people show up that we don't know, forgetting that we have all been new people who showed up that we didn't know. Yes? So there's this fear of losing what we have that keeps us from expanding. And then the second thing that keeps us from expanding, that keeps us locked up, is not knowing the how. Bless you. So the fear of losing what we have is based on a consciousness of lack and limitation, of a finite supply of good. And yet we teach, and hopefully we know, that infinite good is the very nature of the divine, limited only by us, by our ability to open, to flow with, and to receive and take in this good. There's an old saying that you can go to the ocean of abundance with a thimble or with a tanker truck. Which one do you want to use? How much good do we want to let in? It's not limited. The infinite is not limited. And this fear can show up as resistance and as complacency of this, it's good enough, I don't need to go any further. And then the second thing that keeps us from expanding is not knowing the how, which also can show up as resistance and complacency, kind of a why bother, but we can gradually learn, or sometimes we abruptly learn, to turn to Spirit within for guidance. That's the, I have no idea what to do, God show me the way sort of moment. Anybody besides me ever have okay, yeah. That's the abruptly learn. It's easier to gradually learn. The phrase we often say is the what is ours and the how is God's. The how belongs to what we call the law, the process. Many of us have stories of where we didn't know how, but a way was made. So expanding at the top is opening to the eternal and flow of evolution, the great winds carrying us forward, and it's always forward, and forward is always to a place we have not yet been before, which always feels a little bit uncomfortable because we have not yet been there before. And so we get to learn, and we have to feel disoriented as we learn something new ways of living, but we can trust the principles which are eternal principles. We just learn expanding ways to live and apply them. The infinite presence, those who are here for the meditation this morning, all 3 of you, remembered that the quote that I said that was that integrity is listening to that which is within us, which never changes, even if the life carrying that changes. That which is within us never changes. That infinite presence never changes. We change, but it doesn't change. The gift that we have is understanding that consciousness is cause, that everything begins in mind, capital M, mind, and that the universe is a place of life, of love, of light, of power, of peace, of beauty, and of joy. And the universe is for us. It's not against us. We used to have a class that said, nothing and no one is against me. It was kind of the principle of that class. Our gift, another gift, is understanding that changing and expanding our consciousness changes and expands our circumstances and experiences of life. So let us share these great gifts with the world. Let's not keep religious science just for religious scientists. Yes? Let's not be the best kept secret on the planet or even in town. Rather, let us share it, shine it out into the world, in a world that hungers for what we have to offer, because every soul knows that this is true. Everybody at the soul level knows this is true. This is why so many of you have walked into a New Thought Center like this, heard the teaching, said, I always knew that. I always felt that. But I never knew there was a group of people that believed that. We know that. But oftentimes we've forgotten it. It's been washed over by all sorts of other stuff. Let's find ways to align human reality with spiritual, capital R, reality. It's called heaven as earth. To align with the embodied truth of the divine. Let us step up and expand our vision. And then expand our willingness to let life, capital L life, make it so through us, thus truly creating a grand rising. That is our call this year. That is our call next year. To me, that's always our call. So this week, one practice. Sit with the question, what is mine to do? What is mine to be and then to do this coming year? What is mine to be and to do this coming year? And by the way, this weekend's Intentions Retreat, shameless plug, is a wonderful place to do that. I invite you to be there for that. I want to close with a quote. This was quoted in a book called Creating a World That Works for All by Sharif Abdullah, quoting a person named Ruben Alves, who says, the frontiers of the possible are not determined by the limits of the actual. I'm going to say that again. The frontiers of the possible are not determined by the limits of the actual. And in a miraculous and unexpected way, life is preparing the creative events which will open the way to freedom and resurrection. We are in that process. So we have an affirmation. Say this with me. I create a... Okay, so say this after me. I create exciting new ways to experience and express spirit. I say yes to life. Let's do that one more time. I create exciting new ways to experience and express spirit. I say yes to life. So it is. Thank you.